Further introduction of a bill by Senator Bryant. It amends an act to add a new section requiring two-thirds approval of the Anderson County Board of Education prior to a school or school being closed, merged, expanded, consolidated, or eliminated.
It's a local bill placed on the local calendar. So, that's the senator from Anderson.
Be heard?
Mr. Bryant.
The bill that was just read across the desk calls for a two-thirds approval of the Anderson County School Board for any school closings and mergers and that sort of thing. I want to place it on the calendar. I want to go home, talk to the folks in Anderson, and see. Senator from Greenwood, Senator Odell suggested maybe a referendum would be better than the supermajority on the school board. So we're just going to talk about it. But I do want to tell y'all something that was extremely disappointing in Anderson recently. The chairman of the Anderson School District 5 School Board had a proposal to merge T.L. Hanna and Westside High School. Now, these are very well-established high schools in Anderson. There's a good rivalry between the two. There's a long distance between one end of Westside's district and the other end of Hanna's district. If you lived on Lake Hartwell in Westside's district and you had to go, they were going to put grades 10, 11, 12 at Hanna, you'd have a 30-minute drive. And if you were going to ride the bus, you'd be on the bus for a couple hours a day. If you lived over on the far edge of the Hanna district, over near the jockey lot, and your middle schooler had to go to Westside, you'd have the same problem. 30, 45 minutes in the car, probably an hour and a half at least, each way riding the bus. And I just can't imagine the logic behind this proposal. The most disappointing thing, members of the Senate, was there was a school board meeting last week, and 200 parents who wanted to be heard on this proposal were denied the opportunity to be heard. I have never, in my 10 years in the Senate, ever seen a subcommittee hearing here in Columbia where folks that wanted to be heard were told they could not be heard. That's what we do. If folks are opposed to a bill, we listen to them. We all listen to them. If folks are in favor of a bill, we listen to them. I chaired a subcommittee in LCI last week, 2 bills. The sponsors were the senator from Richland, and I believe Senator from Charleston may have been a sponsor of one of those bills, and we had folks that drove all the way from Charleston, and they wanted to be heard. And they didn't have a chance because we ran out of time. And remember, we carried over those bills because folks that want to be heard need to be given the opportunity to. 200 parents took...
Pardon me. Senator from Spartanburg, what purpose do you rise, sir?
I want to see if the senator from Anderson would yield for questions.
Senator, you for a question.
Yes, sir.
Senator, are you telling me that a publicly elected body, a school board, denied over 200 people that came to the meeting the right to be heard? Is that what you're saying?
Senator, first of all, this boardroom where they spent $400,000 remodeling it a couple of years ago, only seats 80 people. I guess that's just a sign for do not enter. 200 folks came in, and the chairman opened the meeting, no comment. So 200 folks, maybe more, showed up. Most of them were opposed to this plan. Some of them may have been for this plan. They all should have been given the opportunity to talk. And the school board said, we're not interested in what you got to say. And that is a travesty. That's not democracy. That's not how we operate here.
It's not, Senator, and I heard you mention the word referendum. Did you mention that word a second ago?
Senator, I did mention that word. This bill will call for a 2/3 vote of the County Board of Education for school mergers and school closings and that sort of thing. The senator from Greenwood, Senator Odell, suggested we might ought to consider, instead of that, we may ought to consider a referendum. We're going to talk about it. We may amend this bill. I'm going to put it on the calendar, leave it on there for a while. Let me go home, talk to the folks in Anderson. The good news is the chairman decided to pull his plan when he found out how many people were angry over this idea. But the fact that a public body had 200 citizens wanting to talk. I'm just extremely disappointed that they couldn't be heard.
Well, Senator, it sounds to me like you've got some things to do over in Anderson, but I would be very nervous over a referendum on that. I think you might be going down the right road with 2/3. That way that person can't sneak anything else around the citizens of Anderson County.
Well, I'm glad they pulled this plan, but I tell you what else, Senator, S940, they had all these local option sales taxes all over the place that raised taxes on Anderson County, $300 million. They didn't tell us about this plan before the referendum. They thought they'd raise taxes and then unveil this unpopular plan later. So it was the Representative Hill over in the House said it best. He said it was a bait and switch, and that's what they tried to do. They didn't get away with it this time, and hopefully we can prevent them from doing it anymore.
So, Senator, what you're saying is they could have possibly known about this. We would
Senator,
hope they would.
Senator, they had the mascot picked out. It was going to be the Anderson High School Titans. They had the school colors picked out. You remember the referendum had AstroTurf for the football field. Certainly they knew about this plan before they raised taxes.
Is that the referendum that you filibustered trying to prevent that tax increase? Begged the governor to veto it, and it's right into law.
Senator, that was the $1.6 billion tax increase that South Carolina received last November, and I did have some strong opposition to that bill, S940.
And, Senator, if those 200 people, had those same 200 people that showed up and were denied the right to be heard, had they known about this master plan,
I think scheme's probably a little more appropriate.
Had they known about that, do you think they would have voted to have their taxes increased?
Well, it was a countywide referendum. This scheme is only in District 5. I hope there's no other schemes in any of the other 4 districts in Anderson County. But had those folks known about it, no, they would not have voted for that tax increase.
And one final question. I believe Anderson County, Spartanburg County doesn't have this, but I believe Anderson County has a county board of education as well as multiple school districts, correct?
Yes, sir. We have a county board of education.
Is your amendment or your bill focused on 2/3 of the county board of education?
Yes, sir.
So they could take a county-wide look at it and make sure you didn't have a rogue district out there?
That's correct.
Okay.
It would be the county's approval.
Thank you.
This is a local bill, and it's on the local calendar.
Senator from Spartanburg, what purpose do your eyes?
Oh,
Senator, you have
Nielsen.
another question.
Senator, can you help me remember exactly what took place? How many senators does it take to sit down a senator when he has the floor?
Well, Senator, I'm on introductory remarks now, but if you're referring to yesterday, it took 24 to
When
end that
they were
debate.
trying to raise taxes on your people, how many votes was that?
The desk can remind me. I think a bill returned from the House is 26 votes.
So it was 26 votes, but we got 28 Republicans over here, and you telling me that some Republicans voted to sit you down to raise taxes in your county?
Well, Senator, there were some on both sides. There were 10, 11, 12, I believe, on this side that didn't vote a cloture a single time.
But we had a Republican governor. Did she veto that?
Senator, I begged her to veto the $1.6 billion tax increase, and they decided not to.
So, Senator, we had Republicans, let me make sure I'm right. We had Republicans in the Senate vote to end your ability to debate for your people to keep tax increases in your county, and Republicans voted to sit you down?
Senator, a $1.6 billion tax increase, I had very strong views against that bill. We've already found one scheme in that bill. Hopefully there's no more across this state. There might be. I would encourage everyone to go back home and make sure these entities are being honest with the voters when they raise their taxes. What are they going to do with it?
Senator, let me ask you this. Did that make you think maybe if they were up there at the podium or if they had something that was important to them, maybe it's not as important to you now? Would those folks that voted to sit you down, is that?
Well, Senator, I did have several hours. And I appreciate the patience with the body. This was the last day of session. But I tell you what, the 200 people that showed up the other night, they couldn't even take the podium. They didn't give a chance to speak up for a minute.
Senator, time's within seconds of being up.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Bill referred to the local calendar. Senator from Marion,
Introduction.
for an introduction.
Okay, well, I'd already asked him. I had already asked him.
You always let the lady first.
Yield to the lady.
Well, we yield to a lady
Senator from Lexington. Ms. Shealy.